Somebody said, Axiom says, how do you build a portfolio of assessments if you can't keep business documents for personal use? How do you build a portfolio of assessments if you can't keep business documents for personal use? You don't keep, okay. And I'm just going to speak from my own personal experience, having done risk assessments, many risk assessments for a couple of different organizations. Now I've worked for the Department of Defense, the Air Force, the Army in particular. I've worked for classified environments, not unclassified environments, and private sector, and aerospace. And I'm going to tell you, you can't take any of that stuff home. I can't take any of my scans home. I can't take any of those scans or results of those scans. For as a cybersecurity person, that would make it so that I'll never be hired if that got out. If I'm collecting scan information and then taking it home, like that is a no. So you put it on your resume. That's what you do. You say, you explain how many systems you scanned, how many, and you may be you might be talking about something totally different. It sounds like you are, but how you put this stuff together, how you explain what you've done is you have an action statement on your resume and you have an impact statement. This is how I do it. This is how the military taught me. This is how I've been getting jobs for a decade now. So what you'll do is you'll say, I'll give you an example of a bullet statement that I'll put on my resume. Something like this. I'll say something like, assessed 4 different clients in 3 different industries. Managed to get each one of these clients certified. Or you could say something like, conducted security control assessments on 15 different systems, mission critical systems that contained 2,000 assets. Each of these mission critical systems were able to attain a authorization to operate, something like that. So I'm saying the action that took place, so they can see that I'm a real deal assessor. I've done this multiple times on many different industries, and the impact was I was able to get them to continuously operate effectively. They were able to get that certification, on time and under budget. You can put stuff like that in there. So you don't keep any of that stuff. So Axiom says, that's exactly what I'm asking. How can I show impact of the assessment that I've done without having proof? Yeah. So that's how I do it. So if they want proof, then they're going to have to contact the people who I worked for. And that's where you put references in. So if they want, that's how they would validate the stuff that I've done, is that they would go ahead and call my boss. And I would normally don't put the references. I don't normally put my references directly on my resume. I'll just put at the bottom, contact me for, I'll put references as a title, a header, and I'll put contact me for references. And then I'll send them the references. If they want my previous boss, I'll give them the number to my previous, the email or number to and then I'll call my boss and be like, hey man, like, could you do me a fab? I just told this new employer that they're gonna, that you're my point at my reference. And then normally they're like, okay, man, no problem. So I've done that many times, many times. And they're usually, and the references that and I've had people contact me, like some of my coworkers would, as a matter of fact, a couple weeks ago, this is crazy. So that's a good question. So a couple weeks ago, one of my they didn't tell me this. They didn't call me. I guess she didn't have my number or something, or my contact information. But some random employer called me and said, hey, do you know, I'll just make up a name, Nancy Smith. I'm calling from Ringtone LLC. Do you know a Nancy Smith? And I said, yeah. I said, well, I just wanted to ask you I'm calling on in regards to a job. They applied for a job here, and I just want to verify that they worked with you as a vulnerability scanner, vulnerability manager." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, can you tell me a little bit about the work that Nancy did there?" I said, "Yeah, Nancy was a credit, and she was the person that did the vulnerability management. I was an information security officer, so we had to work together quite a bit. We'd run scans together. I'd have to take the scans. We'd have to scan. We'd have to look through them and things like that." She says, "Okay, so what kind of worker was Nancy? Was she a good worker? Did she know anything about Tenable?" And I said, "Yeah, that was the main tool that we used to conduct scans. Like she would run the scans on a weekly basis. It was a very stressful job." And I said, and I gave her kudos. I said, "Actually, she was pregnant at the time. She was magnificent. She did a great job. She handled pressure very well, and she was very skillful." And they were so blown away, impressed by what I said. So that's how you get verification that you were there, and that happens on a regular basis. Um, Let me see. Somebody said, SS says, oh, okay. Axum says, right now I'm doing third party risk assessments and want to use it on my resume. Yeah, yeah. So that's how you do it, man. Like you'll list out the action. It's action and impact. Very important, right? If